You're listening to Kyle Warren.
All right, now, people of the earth, this is your president, the General Small, and Obamacare Commander-in-Chief, fighting for you to try to fix the website, which I'm not happy about. Not one tiny little bit am I happy about it, but I'm fighting for you because that's what we do in the Obama administration. And I want to rally you up, and I want to find out how angry you are about the website and stuff, which I'm angry about too. And, well, that's not all I can do right now. I'm going to make another speech. I'm going to get really angry about the website. All right, that is all.
All right, that is all. Welcome, everyone around the globe and across the net. Kyle Warren with you. Glad to be with you, of course. Don't forget email address, Kyle@KyleWarrenShow.com. That's Kyle@KyleWarrenShow.com. Pick up the podcast feed at KyleWarrenShow.com as well. I know, well, the real Barack Obama is always... he says he's always mad about the website. He's mad. I'm not happy about it, and this kind of thing, and that's fine. So I guess our own fake Barack Obama is just taking this opportunity today to reiterate to you that he's mad about the website thing. The website thing is probably not going to get fixed anytime soon. Especially by November the 30th. And again, we really shouldn't be having these kinds of conversations. I thought, once healthcare.gov rolled out and the Obamacare thing was just going to be a runaway train, and of course we found out it's a runaway train on its way to a train wreck, but it should have been a runaway train that was just going to, be a juggernaut of healthcare for all those people who didn't have health care, but now we're finding out that many of the people who don't have health care don't even want to sign up for health care. Meanwhile, over at least 1 million people, headline yesterday, 1 million people in California alone are going to lose their health coverage because of the Affordable Care Act. But guess what? As I'm sure that you've thought many times yourself, this new health care is not affordable. The old health care was barely affordable in many cases, but now it's certainly not for literally what is going to be millions of people. This is a travesty. But before we go any further today, folks, I want to mention, of course, about what we're seeing unfolding in the Philippines right now, and it is just absolutely devastating. Tears are being brought to so many Americans' eyes seeing what's happening, and I know that locally your church, your place of worship may have programs or other kinds of ways that you can help financially and perhaps in other ways as well. Some churches even send teams to disaster areas to help those who are in need for their basic needs. That's the first priority here, getting people their basic needs. And of course, one way that you can help is you can go to the Red Cross and donate or go to another charitable organization of your choice that is doing good, that is helping the people there, and that is something that you can do. We can also pray for those in the Philippines, and just these stories are just devastating, as we've seen now for several days. And so again, this storm, some have called it the biggest that we have in recorded history, and it is literally just a heartbreaking thing to witness. So we can all pitch in, we can all do something to help our fellow human beings who absolutely need our help at this point in time. So I do encourage you to do that today, if you have not already done so. Okay, so let's get back to Obamacare. This from Washington Post. Well, actually, no, wait. I'm going to make an executive decision here, and I'm going to say no. We're going to go to the audio clip first. Jay Carney. Then we'll go to Washington Post. Talk about the healthcare website, which unfortunately is not going to be fixed. And, you have some who are saying, well, let it all just, crumble and this kind of stuff. And this is what it's doing, by the way. But at the same time, though, it's just more false promises, in my opinion. It's just more false promises and more of the same and more of we're going to fight for you to make sure you get affordable health care, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, when all the while this is just an incompetency gone wild. And I can't imagine somebody could put together a DVD of this, of all the stuff President Obama said up to this point. I just posted it on YouTube, and it would just be incompetency gone wild. And it's very sad because we're talking about real people. We're talking about real people who have real healthcare issues. We're talking about people who have cancer, people who are struggling with all kinds of diseases, people who are fighting for their lives. If President Obama really wants to fight for something, perhaps he would want to help people fight for their lives by making sure that they don't have to interrupt the care that they're getting now, that they are happy with, that they are satisfied with, that the doctors are actually helping them, and they are being kicked off or kicked out of their health care because they simply can't afford it anymore, and so forth. It would seem to me, my friends, that if President Obama wants to fight for us, you and me, regardless of political affiliation or any other boundary that we have in our society, if President Obama wants to fight for us, he should make a stand and say, I'm stopping this right now. Because he really right now is the only one who can. Otherwise, it's going to be, at some point, Obamacare is going to crumble of its own weight, its own inability to get funding for people signing up, or it's going to eventually be either massively delayed or it's going to be repealed because those representatives in the House and those senators in the Senate are going to be hearing from their constituents. They're going to be hearing about this, not just right now, but as the holidays approach, as we hit Christmas time and New Year's, and certainly after the first of the year, when all of this is going to be hitting the fan, they are going to hear the voices of their constituents, and they, in turn, are going to turn, I think, in a chorus and tell President Obama this has got to stop. So I think President Obama, if he wants to exercise leadership, sometimes a leader has to say, this was the wrong road to go down. We're going down a new road, or we're going to at least stop the damage that's being done to the American people and their health care and their peace of mind. You know, we hear about, trust in Obama, and how's his credibility going to fare with this? And I've talked about it myself, but here's the other thing too. The American people need peace of mind. They need to have some kind of confidence that the person sitting in the chair behind the desk in the Oval Office really does have their best interest at heart and simply isn't going to be saying, I'll make another speech, or, well, you don't like it now, but you'll like it later, etc., blah-blah-blah-blah-blah. And even President Clinton talking about, well, the president should honor his commitments. What? He said the healthcare law was overall good. Well, he said we needed the law. You know, we need this law. But as I said, he's hedging. As I said in the program yesterday, he's hedging because Hillary's going to have to run on some sort of fix Obamacare, or I could have done it right in the first place. If you elect me, I will redo Obamacare into Hillary care. And probably what they'll do is they'll just call it Bush care. Because if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, hey, what you expect, man? It was Bush care. We blame George Bush. Okay, so as I said, let's go to the audio clip. Jay Carney at the White House talking with our new best friend, everyone's new best friend in the world, John Carl of ABC News. You go, John. And I'm telling you, this guy... Everybody out there needs to write an email to ABC and say, you know, we appreciate what John Carl is doing. He's asking questions in the White House press briefing room, and just give him a kudos. I know you probably hear it in my voice today. I don't know. I'm don't have a cold, but I think I might be getting the beginnings of it. But I'm powering through because these things are way too important. And so let's hear Jay Carney with John Carl at the White House now.
Is the number of people who enroll going to be lower than those that have been receiving cancellation notices?
John, I would simply ask you to wait until the data are released. I think it's fair to say that the enrollment figures will be low, and we're going to be low anyway. They will be significantly lower because of the challenges posed by the faulty website.
Okay, stop right there. So he says, is the number of people who are enrolling essentially going to be lower than those who have received cancellation notices? Good question. Now, John Carl is not asking this question. My opinion is that he's not asking this question because he's wondering, gee, I wonder if they're going to have more people enrolling that have been canceled. No, I think he's asking this question to make the point. How many? Hundreds of thousands, and it'll be into the millions if it isn't already. You can add up state by state and so forth, but gee whiz, California clocks in with a whopping 1 million. It'll be in the millions. How many millions? We just don't know yet. Some estimates are ultimately 54 million people losing their health insurance. Ultimately, as a result of the Affordable Care Act. I mean, this is significant. This isn't, oh, well, it's just some 5%. Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. We're just going to, it really, I think Americans care about, because they cared in the first place. Obama went to the American people and they cared in the first place. There are people without health care. We have to have some kind of reform, some kind of way that they can get health care. And the American people said, that's a great idea. Let's do that. There are all these complex nuances to it and reasons why we should oppose the Obamacare in its form that it was presented and so forth. But the idea is not something Americans are absolutely adverse to because the American people care. But you see, we're supposed to, I guess they go, well, we don't care. It has to be imposed on us. So you have to be told to care for somebody or some other kind of weird thing like that. So the people, of course, who have lost their health care coverage are going to outnumber by far, literally, like the distance between the electron and the nucleus in the atom. It's going to be really far. It's going to really be really super far away of how much people have lost their insurance as opposed to those who are enrolling. So Jay Carney says, well, the data's going to not released. It's going to be significantly lower because of the faulty website. So let's hear John Carl's response.
What will that say? What kind of a message is that if more people have received cancellation notices than have actually been able to enroll? Okay, stop right there. First of all, that's a great question. We'll hear Jay Carney in a second. That's a great question. What kind of message is that? Well, it's the message of incompetence gone wild. It's just incompetence gone wild. In fact, can I get a big boomy voice on that? Incompetence gone wild. Yeah, that's about what it is. And and it's not funny because we're talking about real people, but that is the message that it sends. The message that it sends is the federal government tried to take over and is taking over 1/6 of the economy at a conservative estimate. They cannot administer it. You cannot centrally plan healthcare. You cannot do these kinds of things without real expertise. And how many people said, as soon as the website started crashing and going bad, how many people said, well, why didn't they hire Google, or why didn't they hire somebody else, or this kind of thing? And then suddenly we had to be bringing in the best and the brightest. The American people need to be asking the question, if this was that important, and we're going to take over 1/6 of the U.S. economy, and we're going to centrally plan all this stuff, and we're just going to go big government like you've never seen before, why wouldn't you get the best and the brightest first? This is just a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. Okay, so let's hear Jay Carney's response to, well, what kind of message is that, asked by John Carl.
Say that it would say two things. One, the history of these kinds of programs, and Massachusetts is the best model, show that enrollment is very slow.
He's saying enrollment is very slow early on. Yeah, it's just like Massachusetts. Yeah. And they're just dipping back into the into the campaign against Mitt Romney to try to say, hey, Obamacare is great because it had Romney care. Mitt Romney, we're based off his model and all this kind of stuff. Well, it's just another deception. There is no way. There is no way to spin this. It's just low enrollment and nobody, we just got to wait and this kind of stuff. We had a faulty website and this kind of thing. It's not the faulty website. And this is the nightmare scenario for the Obama administration. For example, they could bring in Google tomorrow. Let's just say that they did. I know they're bringing in experts and people in the industry and so forth right now, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, they could bring in a giant like Google, and a giant like Google can make this thing work and produce a perfectly functional, flawless website that interfaces with the IRS, which displays health plans that you could choose from almost virtually instantaneously, as Amazon does for products. Or I mentioned the other day, car parts. I had to get a car part. I had in a matter of a few seconds, thanks to my high-speed internet connection, right? I had several options and prices for the car part that I needed, virtually instantaneously. So imagine if you could have a healthcare website, healthcare.gov, that would do all these things, be absolutely flawless. Certain other facts, basic things would not change in this whatsoever. There would still be people receiving cancellation notices left and right into the millions. You would still have Americans who are now going to be worried, nervous, and lacking peace of mind in their government, in their looking to the future about having adequate health care, being able to afford it. And you would still have the idea that so many people, especially young people, are not going to sign up for this because it makes no sense for them to do that. You would still have the older and less healthy or sicker people being some of the only ones who are signing up for it. I don't blame them for signing up. That's what this is what they're trying to make it for. They're trying to get people health care. But they're not going to have the younger people paying into the system that's going to make the system operate. And you'd still have all these problems, even if you had a flawless website. That's the other shoe to drop. They can fix the website all the live long day, but it's not going to change the fundamental problems. Back after this.
You're listening to Kyle Warren.
Education and advocacy are the keys to preventing heart disease in Americans. That's why Diet Coke has joined the National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute for the Heart Truth Campaign to help women and their families recognize their risks for heart disease and take the necessary steps to prevent it. Registered dietitian Katie Cavuto-Boyle explains.
Many women have been touched by the Heart Truth message. Knowledge is power, but it's time to put that knowledge into action. In the kitchen, in the gym, in your life.
Any good heart-healthy tips for women?
It is so important to be mindful of your food choices, to include whole grains, a variety of fruits and vegetables. Choose a no-calorie beverage. As important as diet is, it's just as important to make a commitment to being more physically active. Whether it be a walk after dinner, sit-ups during the commercial of your favorite show, just get up and get moving. It all adds up.
To learn more about the Heart Truth Campaign and what you can do to stay fit and heart healthy, log on to dietcoke.com. I'm Bob Tebow for the Consumer Radio Network.
Congratulations! You've become a success in the business world. You've set goals, and you've surpassed them. But now you ask yourself, how can I muster the ambition and time to continue encouraging growth and still have time to enjoy life? Where did the excitement and ambition I once had go? That's where we come in. High-level performance. Executive coaches that, simply put, in 3 years could help you triple your income, triple your fun, and triple your free time. Find out more at highlevelperformance.com. That's highlevelperformance.com. Highlevelperformance.com.
After a long, hard day in the rough and tumble world of politics, open a tall, cool Kyle Warren show. Ah, that crisp, refreshing taste, that smooth style, that effervescing attitude, and without all that other stuff that can, well, bog you down. Helping to put back what the daily media assault takes away, listen to The Kyle Warren Show weekdays right here on this station and visit the website at KyleWarrenShow.com. This is The Kyle Warren Show.
Everybody, this is Bill. And listen, I love the show, but I also love the attention I'm getting from going out and saying, you know, we're better off with Obamacare, but you got to honor the commitment. Now I know. Now, believe me, hear me on this. I know that if I say we need Obamacare, then that's going to get me some cover and all, kind of get ready for Hillary to run for president and stuff like that. But at the same time, I know that I say if we need Obamacare, but yet the president has to honor his commitment, and that you can't kick off all those people and throw them into the exchanges, well, then it's not going to work. And I know that, and you know that. And so really, I mean, this is just, I don't envy Obama at all on this, but I got to tell you, he painted himself in a corner on that. And honestly, one phone call to me probably could have fixed it. I could have told him where the pitfalls were. And, well, whatever. I mean, didn't want to nominate Hillary, so never mind. But I love you, and I love the show. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
Okay, I don't know what to make of that at the end there. Welcome back, everybody. Kyle Warren with you. Welcome back as we continue to race through and rocket through this Wednesday, November the 13th edition of the program. Now, what's he saying? He knows that if he says we need Obamacare, that gives him cover, but at the same time, by saying you're going to honor your commitment, it means that millions of people won't be kicked out of their health insurance and they won't get onto the exchanges and everything will collapse essentially. Yeah, that sounds about right. Once again, even fake Bill Clinton knows much more than real Barack Obama. Back after this.
Listening to Kyle Warren.
Heart disease is the number one killer of men and women in America. But did you know that just 30 minutes a day of physical activity can improve your health and decrease your risk of heart disease? An easy way to work physical activity into your regular routine is to start walking. For every hour of regular, vigorous exercise, you gain 2 hours of life expectancy. So start walking for yourself and for your heart. Start walking with your family. You'll feel better. Start walking with your friends. You'll live longer. Start walking in your community. You'll lead happier and healthier lives. Start walking. Start something. Join the movement today. For more information on the American Heart Association START program, visit startwalkingnow.org. And start walking. Start something.
Hi, I'm Tim McGraw. Every 2 seconds, someone in America needs blood. Accident victims, cancer patients, and individuals with blood disorders and other illnesses. They may live next door or up the block or across town. They're our neighbors. Yet only a small percentage of those who are eligible to give donate blood. A healthy blood supply comes from ordinary people, just like you and me. It's all about neighbors helping neighbors. Your gift of blood is needed now to help save lives. That's why I'm joining with my good neighbors at State Farm and the American Red Cross in the Neighbors Give Life campaign to raise awareness and to challenge you to donate blood. It only takes an hour of your time and can save the lives of up to 3 people. You can donate as many as 6 times a year, so make an appointment to donate at your local blood center and donate often. And won't you join me now in giving the gift of life? Be a hometown hero. Visit NeighborsGiveLife.com for more information about donating blood.
Obama will tax us, we will freely give to Obama, Obama, he will save the world. Obama will tax us, we will freely give it. It's patriotic, give your money now.
You're listening to Kyle Warren.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Kyle Warren with you. Welcome back as we continue racing and rocketing through this Wednesday, November the 13th edition of the broadcast. Glad to be with you, of course. Don't forget, email address, Kyle@KyleWarrenShow.com. That's Kyle@KyleWarrenShow.com. Pick up the podcast feed at KyleWarrenShow.com as well. Okay, we're going to jump back into the press briefing room at the White House. Jay Carney, again, addressing questions regarding Obamacare and the numbers that are supposed to come out, I think, on Friday. These are the secret numbers which could not even be alluded to in the hearings, the congressional hearings. I can't tell you that. And stuff like that. I mean, this is just ridiculously stupid. It's just crazy. And I don't, and people will say, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, all right. But the thing is, it really is. It's actually insane what we're going through here on this. And there's no way to spin the failure, not only of the rollout, but of the fundamental, foundations of Obamacare. There's no way to spin it. And because here's the thing, the president did spin it. He had been spinning it since the very beginning of the discussions of Obamacare. If you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health plan, you can keep your health plan. Nobody's going to do anything that's going to take that away, etc., etc., etc. And my friends, it has been, it's just a spinmeister phenomenon. So now, no matter what they do, and that was before Obamacare was actually known, we had to pass it to know what's in it, et cetera, so you could spin all you wanted. But now, there is no spin. There can't be. They're trying, and some people will try to spin it. A lot of that is diversion. Well, Obamacare doesn't work. It's fundamentally flawed, and the website doesn't work to boot. Well, but as you know, people need to have health care, and they need to blah, blah, blah. So we know that. But we're talking about the fundamental failures and flaws of Obamacare. So now let's go back to hear Jay Carney. There's one question, I think, from CNN, and then Jonathan Karl, everybody's new best friend, Jonathan Karl, also chimes in once again here. So let's hear that now, shall we?
And on those enrollment numbers, is the administration confident that those numbers will be accurate, given all the problems with insurers being able to sort through the data and figure out which applications are correct and properly submitted and so forth?
Well, I know that they're going to work very hard over at CMS and HHS.
Working hard.
Compile the data and present the most accurate data available. I think that's a good question in light of the fact that some on Capitol Hill have been demanding data daily, and we've made the point that, consistent with the release of data for other programs, it is in the interests of everybody to do this on a monthly basis so that the data is as accurate as possible. John.
Jay, you've been crystal clear the number's going to be low for the first month. Is there any number that would concern the White House? Is there any number that is so low?
Well, I can guarantee.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, good question, by the way. First of all, from CNN, Jim Acosta, is the administration confident the numbers are going to be accurate? Well, probably not. And do they care? Probably not. They got to throw something out there. You got to, and as I said, this is all spin. It's all about spin now. They have to spin it no matter what. If one person signed up, wouldn't it better that one person signed up than we didn't have the program? Whatever it is, 150 million people could sign up, and they'd spin it a certain way. How wonderful it was. One person signs up, and they'd still go with how great it is, and so forth. And so there's no failure from the White House. There's just, he's mad that the website doesn't work. But the next question from John Karl is also great. Numbers are going to be low. Is there any number that is so low? And Jay Carney begins to anticipate his question. But no, there is no number that's so low that would be an embarrassment, essentially, to the White House. They're just not. Even though it is embarrassing, they're going to honestly just spin it however they can. This president, most unfortunately, this isn't a Republican thing, it's not a Democrat thing, it's not a liberal or conservative thing. It is a leadership thing. In fact, that's what T-shirts need to say, or bumper say, it's a leadership thing. It needs to be about leadership, whether it's leadership of President Clinton or leadership of President George W. Bush, leadership of Ronald Reagan or leadership of John F. Kennedy. You have to have some kind of leadership. You have to have some kind of confidence that you instill in the public. Not a savior, sort of messianic, Obama is the chosen one type of deal, because that doesn't work in American politics. It might get you elected. It might, create a phenomenon or something like that. But it's not leadership. And that's the important issue here. So, no, there's no number that's going to make the White House go, oh, my goodness, because the ideologues in the White House, Obama, Valerie Jarrett, the ideologues simply cannot and will not, in my opinion, take any of this to heart. It matters not. How many millions of people are getting kicked out their health insurance? Well, tell them it's better. It's just be better. It'll just be better. This kind of thing. But that's not what they were told. That's not what they were promised. But you see, the ideology trumps everything. The ideology trumps everything. And that's where we're going to get into trouble. And that's where we've gotten into trouble. And it becomes so focused with such blinders on that the people who are driving the ideological transformation of America simply cannot see how destructive it truly is. We have a system for a reason. We have separation of powers, checks and balances for a reason. And what is becoming so crazy in this day and age is that by me uttering the idea that we have checks and balances and we have separation of powers for a reason is now quickly becoming considered radical and subversive. That is wrong. It's absolutely, completely turned around. You have people cheering Obama, saying, yes, you can, to bypass Congress. Hey, we don't want, just bypass Congress. We don't want separation of powers. We don't want what the framers intended. We want a king, a dictator, a sovereign, a one-stop shopping, whatever you want to call it. That's not cool, and that's not good, and that's not the road we should go down at all. And so we don't need another big dose of ideology. We need some practical ways of ironing out problems. Doug Schoen the other night on Hannity in the panel discussion, or the studio audience discussion, Doug Schoen kept saying bipartisan, bipartisan, bipartisan. And guess what? He's right. He's right. He's right. If we're going to do anything big like this, it absolutely needs to be bipartisan. If we're going to be able to fix the real problems that we face, it's going to have to be bipartisan. If we're going to have to find a way to do these kinds of things. Obama doesn't seem interested in doing these kinds of things. And you saw what happened when you had one-party rule, when essentially you had a dictatorial state of affairs because there could be no opposition. Nobody could oppose the passage of this horrifically bad bill. And that's all it is. It's a horrifically bad bill. It's not about not caring for people, not wanting to have health insurance, because the American people accepted what Barack Obama said by and large. We've got to do something, make sure everybody gets a chance to get covered. This kind of stuff, American people do care. That's a wrong argument to make of anybody who just opposes Obamacare because it's a what? It's a horrifically bad bill. And we need some kind of working together in this country. That's not to say we don't have deep ideological differences, but deep political differences in terms of how we get things accomplished and so forth. But nobody in this country is going to do well if we have a dictator. I'm not saying Obama's a dictator. I'm just saying that for the sake of argument here, we absolutely have to work together instead of going down the path we're going down right now, and that is simply destroy all opposition. If anybody has any opposition whatsoever, we'll call them racists, and then we'll get some celebrities to call them racists, and then this kind of stupid stuff, man. This is just crazy. Okay, so John Carl says, are the numbers going to be so low? Is there any number that would concern the White House? Is the question. Let's hear Jay Carney's answer.
The number that is released will be lower than we had hoped and anticipated because of the problems with the website. And that is why it is so important to focus our energies on fixing the problems. And that goes to the subpoena we were talking about earlier, and the attempt to remove somebody who's very much a key part of the effort to fix the website from his job for a certain amount of time. And it raises questions about how sincere critics are when it comes to joining with us in the effort to try to fix the problems that exist.
But I guess
okay, stop right there. That's right. See, the people who are calling for, I don't know, anybody to be fired on this, they're just not trying to help. This is, again, you got to destroy anybody you got to marginalize anybody. You've got to humiliate anybody who says, wait a minute, something's wrong here. And it's not just healthcare, or Obamacare. It's Fast and Furious. It's Benghazi. It's, take your pick. And, you got to wonder why nobody is ever fired for anything. Okay, let's continue.
All that said, you made it very clear, as I said. But is there any number that would be so low that you would say, "Wow, alarm bells are going off. We have a problem"?
Again, John, I think it's a very creative way to try to set expectations, and the only expectations I'll set is that we expect them to be low. We expected them to be low as a percentage of the overall number of people who would enroll by the end of the 6-month period. In any case, because that is the experience that we've seen.
Stop right there. See, that's the model. See, now that's the model. But you see, here's the thing, though. At the beginning, in October, when the website was unable to handle any of this and wasn't doing anything right and so forth, and what was the spin then? There are so many people who are interested. They're all trying to sign up. Millions of people are trying to sign up, and we just can't handle it right now, and this kind of stuff. And see, do you see? And now it's, well, we expected all along it wouldn't be very much. So I don't know which it is, but it's whatever it is that day. Let's continue.
In Massachusetts, and in similar kinds of programs, younger, healthier people especially tend to wait until the last minute to enroll in these kinds of programs. And overall, I think, whether you're young or old, if you don't have to enroll until a certain time, you're going to take your time to look at your options and wait until late in the process. That was certainly what happened in Massachusetts.
And when you're defining enrollment, there's been some reporting about how the numbers be. Are you going to be including people who have picked out a health care plan and put it in their shopping cart but haven't actually paid for it?
I would refer you to HHS and CMS for how they define enrollment. I can tell you that it is consistent with the way Massachusetts did it. It is consistent.
Stop right there. It depends on what the meaning of enrollment is. Let's continue.
With the way the states are doing it. The marketplace experience or process ends when a person selects a plan. Essentially presses enroll in a plan. And after that, it becomes a private insurer and the individual. So the process they're using, as I understand it, will be consistent with what Massachusetts did and with what the states are doing. And more details, obviously, will be available when those data are released.
In other words, we'll tell you whatever we want to tell you. And you better like it, because if you don't like it now, you're gonna like it later on. Oh my goodness! I mean, this just continues. This just continues to get worse. It continues to get worse for the American people. You talk about a government shutdown. I wonder, is there anything else happening in the government right now? Is Obama, can he concentrate on anything? He went? He played golf. That's right. Yeah, that's right. He played golf. It's another golfing emergency. And we got to get out there and do some golfing. While millions of people are losing their health insurance, and it just doesn't matter. And they lost their health insurance based on insurances they got from me. It's like, yeah, man, you passed the law and you signed it and you knew and this kind of stuff. I mean, really, this is unbelievable. Yeah, people will say Bush said, well, there were weapons of mass destruction. Now, I don't think people said he always knew there weren't, but the idea was they thought there were, so they went into Iraq and this kind of thing. So it's different from the read my lips, no new taxes, because at the time, I think most political observers would agree, George H.W. Bush did not intend to raise taxes, but later caved on raising taxes. And this was obviously just a major blow to his political career. He wasn't reelected, and in many ways it was because he had said, I won't raise taxes. There are other economic factors and so forth Bill Clinton was able to capitalize on at the time. But certainly read my lips was not I just told them I'm not going to raise their taxes, when in reality I'm going to wait a couple of years and I'll do it. This kind of thing. He never intended to, essentially, but then caved. Obama was evidently and certainly in the position to be aware of the research, which would indicate that what he was saying was not true. And so if you're saying something you know is not true, then, that's, well, you know what that is. All right, back after this, folks, I guarantee it.
Listening to Kyle Warren.
We'll be back.
My son Casey was a bright, fearless 20-year-old with a boundless future ahead of him. But in the blink of an eye, he was gone. While out riding his skateboard, Casey fell. He was not wearing a helmet. Our whole family wishes he was. It could have saved his life. I'm Captain Kevin Raffelli of the San Mateo Police Department. Whether you're on campus or back home on break, strap on a helmet every time you jump on a bike or skateboard. Think of my son Casey and use your head. Put a helmet on. It could save your life.
A message from the Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Hello, I'm Faith Hill. You know the expression, practice makes perfect? Well, maybe nowhere is that more true than in music. Music study is one of the most valuable ways that a student can spend time. A young person who practices and studies music reinforces teamwork, communication skills, self-discipline, and creativity. All the qualities that kids need to be successful in their other schoolwork. As parents, think about encouraging your children to try out several instruments at school until they find the one that really clicks. Talk to the school's music teacher about finding affordable lessons so your child can see his or her progress as time goes by. And please don't forget that your kids all have an instrument that's free and sounds wonderful, their voices.
A PSA brought to you by MENC, the National Association for Music Education, and the National Anthem Project, the campaign to restore America's voice through music education. Music, part of a sound education.
You're listening to Kyle Warren.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Kyle Warren with you. Welcome back as we continue racing through and rocketing through this Wednesday, November the 13th edition of the program. Lots more to talk about, of course, as we continue. Ed Schultz over on MSNBC, folks. There's a network out there called MSNBC. And Ed Schultz says that he thinks the mainstream media wants Obamacare to fail. The mainstream media wants Obamacare to fail. Very interesting new take. I guess people didn't buy that it was all just Tea Party people who didn't want Obamacare to work. Then it was the bad insurance companies that didn't want Obamacare to work. It's the anti-Obama people who don't want Obamacare to work. But now it's simply become the mainstream media, evidently, that does not want Obamacare to work. I don't know if we have time for the audio clip. However, Ed Schultz, of course, saying that he wants that he believes the mainstream media doesn't want Obamacare to work, I think is now starting to reach, and I guess it's because they're asking too many questions about this. And unfortunately, we don't have time for the whole audio clip, but let me just I can tell you his actual quote that he finally gets to his point on. He says, we're America, we're Americans, we have done a lot of great things, generation after generation. We've called on people to sacrifice, and we've survived as a great nation. So that's fine. Why is it that all of a sudden we have this huge conflict in this pit bull mentality that we just won't give up? The mainstream media, I believe, wants Obamacare to fail, he says. They look for every negative number they can find. They're afraid to do a positive story because they're afraid that somebody might not watch. The media is just cherry-picking the bad facts that are out there, repeating them over and over again, and in many cases, they're making stuff up. Ed Schultz needs to stand side by side with Jay Carney at the press briefing room and talk about the good reporters. Good reporters are doing good stories about Obamacare. I mean, what do you mean? They're cherry picking bad facts, like the website doesn't work, like people aren't signing up, like only 22% of the 15% of the people who are so-called uninsured prior to the passage of Obamacare have any interest at all in even looking and to get a policy? Yeah, we're just cherry-picking all the bad facts. We're cherry-picking all the bad facts about how your information is not secure, how you can be a convicted felon and still be a navigator. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, mainstream media, they just want Obamacare to fail. Yeah, that's the ticket. Reminds me of John Lovitz's pathological liar character on Saturday Night Live. Yeah, that's the ticket. Porridge, I'm sorry, Ed. Man, you're reaching on that. We're back tomorrow. Take care out there.
You're listening to Kyle Warren.
Hello! You are listening to Getting After Lefty, starring Gary Gatehouse, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We have good questions on the show like...
Mr. Obama, sir, I have just a quick question, if I can. I was wondering, just where the hell is your birth certificate?
Well, here it is Monday, Veterans Day in America. Kind of a sad day for me, Veterans Day and Memorial Day in May. Kind of brings back some memories of not too good times for Gary Gatehouse and millions of other guys that marched off the war way back there in Vietnam. I can still remember that day when I left my homeland and I got on that plane. I could look back out the window of that plane and, folks, I could see my missus, my wife, a bride of 1 year, standing on the tarmac waving goodbye to me. 8 months, 3 weeks, and days pregnant. And it just tore at my heart. I can remember like it was yesterday. I can still see her standing there in her little blue jacket, in her checkered maternity blouse, along with my father and mother and father-in-law, my brothers, waving goodbye to me as I got on that big bird and headed west to Travis Air Force Base out there, San Francisco way. I can remember when I landed there and caught the cab out to the base at the staging area, and I met all my buddies that had been issued orders to ship out to Vietnam. Hell, we didn't know where we was going. We knew we were going to Vietnam, but that's as far as we knew. We knew the site. We didn't know what it looked like. Well, you guys and gals that have been through that, you know what I'm talking about. They sent us to the Philippines for 2.5 weeks of combat training, jungle training. Then loaded us up on another big old bird and shipped our butts to Tan Son Nhut Air Force Base. That's down in the southern part of Vietnam. From there, we got our indoctrination on what was going down inside the borders of South Vietnam. We spent 2 days there in the transit quarters, and then we got on another bird, a C-130, and winged our way north all the way to I Corps to an air base called Da Nang Air Base. And we all loaded at the back side of that C-130 and came down on the tarmac, and there was 2 colonels standing there welcoming us to Vietnam, Da Nang. And they had an easel there, and one of them had a pointer. And on that easel it showed Da Nang, Vietnam. And it showed the mountains. And it showed the China Sea. And I can remember that colonel pointing there with this big X, and he says, "This is where you're at. This is where you're staging from right here." All of that area up there that we got marked in red lines, North Vietnamese on that. The Viet Cong, an arm of the North Vietnamese Army, and the Communist Party of North Vietnam, they're there as well. You're within 3 clicks of Viet Cong outpost. In other words, gentlemen, you're surrounded. Now, that didn't go too well with us. But we didn't have time to think about it. They loaded us up on 2.5 trucks, went over and got our weapons issued, took us out about 2.5 clicks out on a dirt road, an old dirt road, and there was a bunch of old dusty tents. And that was going to be my home, my staging area for the next 12 months. And I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs and ups and downs and thises and that's that went on that 12 months I was there. Back then we couldn't communicate via cell phone or computer. We communicated by writing letters back and forth to our loved ones. And I remember they came in and said, one of the perks of being in combat over here is you don't have to put a stamp up there on that envelope. Just write free. And the government's going to take care of you. So while we were over there, we could send our letters back to their loved ones, and they would go free. And that was one of the perks, plus $60 a month combat pay. $60 a month. And I remember I was there about 2.5 weeks at the most. And a Red Cross guy come walking down the little path where my tent was. And over there, ladies and gentlemen, anytime you seen a Red Cross guy coming, you just kind of hoped he didn't walk up to you, because most of the time it meant bad luck or bad news. Somebody in your family, somebody that you knew was either ill or died or got killed or something back in the homeland. And he kept walking and walking, and he walked past some other guys, and he walked up to me. And I said, yes. He says, are you Gary Gatehouse, Sergeant Gary Gatehouse? And I said, yes, I am. He says, I have some news for you. You're the father of a baby girl. And I didn't know what to say. But it was good news. It was good news. My wife had given birth to our daughter, Kelly Jo. And she sent some pictures. And a couple of weeks after that, I got some pictures of Kelly and my wife. And I was so proud. And I told myself, Gary, Bud, you have got to do everything you can to keep yourself in one piece to get back so you can see your daughter and your wife. And I prayed to God every day that He would watch over me. Some of my friends got killed, but I made it without a scratch. I remember the day I got on that plane to go home. We took the mortuary flight from Da Nang, and we flew all around South Vietnam picking up bodies of Marines and Army personnel, etc., that had been killed in action. In body bags at that time, a lot of them were still clear. You could still see the guys in there in their uniforms, etc. And they were taking them to Saigon for embalming and processing and cleaning up. And we flew around all over South Vietnam picking these guys up. And when we landed in Tan Son Nhut Air Base, we all knew that we were just about ready to leave Vietnam and head home. We spent 3 days there in transit tents getting processed out. And ladies and gentlemen, not 5 hours after I had left Vietnam, the very place that I was in to stage to catch the plane out got hit by mortar fire. God was watching over me. He wanted me back to take care of my wife and my daughter. And I'll never forget when I landed and I went home. My wife was living in a little one-bedroom apartment about 2 blocks from her father-in-law. And my little brother-in-law, he was 11 years old at the time my wife's brother was living with her, helping her out. And I remember landing and catching a cab and going up to that door and knocking on the door at 3 o'clock in the morning. It was one of the best moments in my life. And I know there's a lot of guys and gals that have lived through the same type of stuff I'm telling you right now. But there's a lot of men and women that never came back. Never had the opportunity to hold their sons or daughters, their little kids in their arms again, or their moms and dads, their sisters or brothers or their wives. And that's the people I remember most. I can still see my buddies' faces, the ones I lost. They're still young guys. They're still smiling and young in my mind. I remember them. And I say a prayer for all you guys and your families, veterans from past wars, all you young people that are fighting to keep our country free. In Afghanistan, I've been there. I know what it's like. Pakistan, I've been there. All you folks that carry the flag, standing tall. Well, someday when you leave the military, the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, you'll be called veterans. You'll be called veterans. And you will sit down as you get older, and you won't help it. You won't be able to help it. You'll reflect back on the days when you wore the uniform, on the days when you were laying face down in dirt, mud, whatever. Bullets zinging over your head. You'll remember your buddies that you lost on the battlefield. You'll be just like me. And millions of other veterans of all the wars our country has fought since against the Revolutionary War. Those men were veterans too. We seem to tend not to connect them as veterans. But they were. They were just as much veterans as we are. They fought the most powerful army and navy in the world, the British Army and Navy at that time, and they defeated them, but they left a lot of men on the battlefield. They left a lot of their families unattached with no income. One of my ancestors, John Hart, a signer of the Declaration of Independence of the United States of America. From that day forward, after he signed that paper, he was harassed. He lost his farm in New Jersey. His family was disenfranchised from him, like many other men, and yes, women too, that stood up to tyranny and took, like I said, the most powerful army and navy in the world at that time. They took them on and defeated them. And it wasn't because they had better weapons or better generals or whatever. It's because they had the desire to be free. They had the desire to establish a world in which their families and future families could live as free individuals without the tyranny of a government on the other side of the ocean coming down on their throats every time they turned around. These men were some very brave individuals, our forefathers, our founding fathers. And from that point on till this day in America, that line has not been broken. From the veterans of the Revolutionary War to the veterans of the war on terrorism today, these young men and women you see in Walmart or Dairy Queen or anywhere you go wearing their battle dress uniforms or BDUs or their dress uniforms, by God, walk up to them. Walk up to them and pat them on the back. Because you see, most Americans today are not required to go in the military. That ended in 1973. Most Americans today don't know what it's like to even be in the military. Less than 1% of Americans actually wear the uniforms of our military services and protect us, our children, our homeland. Less than 1%. Some of these individuals are pulling 3 and 4 and 5 combat tours. So when you see one, you can thank your lucky stars that he's there doing a job that maybe your son that you never encouraged to put the uniform on to protect his homeland, or your daughter, whatever. You can thank your lucky stars there is somebody there wearing a uniform carrying your water and the majority of the American people's water. Protecting us. Veterans. All wars. Veterans of the United States of America. And you folks over in England, and you folks in New Zealand and in Australia and Canada, today, this is not your Veterans Day, but you have veterans too. I've served with some of your men in Vietnam. Great people. When your Veterans Day comes around, by God, you make sure you honor them. And when you see a bloke in the military with his uniform on, or a Canadian or an Australian or a New Zealander, you do like I do. Go up and thank them for protecting you. Thank them. Buy them some fish and chips. Buy them a pint, whatever. Those folks need to be honored as much as we possibly can. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, when an individual goes into that recruiting station and raises his right hand and swears on the Bible, swears the oath of allegiance to the United States of America, that he will lay his life on the line and make the ultimate sacrifice for the protection of the motherland, why hell, there isn't another individual or individuals in the world that are more of a hero than they are. They are truly heroes in every sense of the word. Please thank them. Say prayers for them and their families. This is Gary Gatehouse, and I'll be back after a few short messages. My brother Jim, a Vietnam veteran, passed away recently. I love you, Jim. And I miss you. God bless our troops. God bless all free countries' troops and their families. Please say prayers for them. Get down on your knees and say a prayer for those that stand between us and those that would want to harm us, our militaries.
Servicemen and women are coming home bearing the physical and emotional wounds of war. The trauma of combat is magnified by the loss of buddies, separation from loved ones, and the stress of multiple extended deployments. Anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and substance abuse often appear after the excitement of homecoming subsides. War wears on families as well. Seeking help is a sign of strength. Visit healthyminds.org to learn more about military mental health from the American Psychiatric Association.
This is a big salute from the Gary Gatehouse radio show to all our armed forces, past and present, you veterans out there. God bless every one of you. Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and the Coast Guard.
Constitutional Patriot Radio proudly presents The Gary Gatehouse Show, Getting After Lefty. Tune in weekdays.
You're listening to the Gary Gatehouse Radio Show, Getting After Lefty. And first of all, I would like to thank all of you individuals that are involved with, producers, etc., that are involved with Constitutional Patriot Radio, whether you be in England or here in the United States. I appreciate you bringing my show on board and the great reception I have received from y'all, and it's heartfelt, believe me, that I have finally found a group of people that are hell-bent on taking our country back and using the media of the World Wide Web to help spread the word of truth, to spread the word of conservatism, and to spread the word to countries worldwide, those countries that are free and those countries that have individuals housed in them that wish they were free and are trying everything they can to become a country of free people. Whether you be in China, Vietnam, wherever. We folks here at the Gary Gatehouse Show, we link arms with you, as do other countries in Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, Canada. We link arms, and we will strive to get the word out to all freedom-loving people, regardless of where you're at. And we will do it, as I say, my motto is on my show, we speak the truth, we broadcast the truth, regardless of the consequences. And we do it each and every day here on CPR Radio. Thanks again, guys, at CPR Radio. This is Gary Gatehouse, and I really appreciate it. We'll be back after a few short messages.
Hi, I'm Paulette Carlson. Veterans Against Drugs is a united effort working with the Vietnam Veterans of America and local anti-drug programs, the clergy, law enforcement, and educators to find ways to reduce the effects of drugs and violence on our youth. Remember the word DRUGS. Don't ruin useful gifts stupidly. America is depending on its youth for the future and depending on you to support Veterans Against Drugs. Please contact us at bva.org.
Good morning, Vietnam! This is Gary Gatehouse, host of the Getting After Lefty show. Welcome home, vets, all vets. Make sure you listen to the Getting After Lefty show every Wednesday and Friday, shining the light of truth on the liberal left. You're listening to the Gary Gatehouse Radio Show on the CPR Radio Network. We'll be back after the Phyllis Schlafly Report. Don't you go away.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report. Mrs. Schlafly is a constitutional attorney, conservative icon, and the author of more than 20 books, including The Supremacists, Turbo Reader, and the revealing new book, The Flip Side of Feminism. And now, here's the president of Eagle Forum, Phyllis Schlafly.
There are many good reasons for Congress to defund Obamacare, but one surely is the sneaky, underhanded plan to give Obamacare jobs to foreigners instead of to our own citizens. Rank this with one of Obama's gross betrayals of the young people who voted for him. Obamacare allows states to outsource some of the well-paying jobs in science and technology to foreigners who are brought into our country on H-1B visas. While most media coverage about Obamacare has been about the exchanges, but federal tax dollars pay up to 90% of the cost to upgrade state Medicaid management information systems, and healthcare has become a very important market for outsourcing. For example, Illinois Governor Patrick Quinn granted one of the largest contracts to Cognizant Technology, one of the top corporations using H-1B visas, and he's going to outsource jobs to contractors from India. This contract awarded a $71 million contract that will pay salaries of up to $256,000 per year per position, plus a $200,000 slush fund for travel. After all, it's expensive to travel from India to Springfield, Illinois. This contract is to upgrade Illinois' Medicaid systems to meet the requirements of Obamacare. Cognizant filed paperwork with the U.S. Department of Labor to hire 60 senior analysts on H-1B visas at the annual pay rate of $76,000. Cognizant is busy recruiting consultants, coders, architects, medical billing specialists, and systems programmers. Cognizant's consulting fees of up to $256,000 per person per year will replace senior American managers.
This has been the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Eagle Forum. Chances are you or someone you care about is unemployed or underemployed. At eagleforum.org, in a blog conversation with Phyllis Schlafly, we're weighing the causes and solutions of this national crisis. One thing is certain, more government spending is not the answer. Join the blog at eagleforum.org. Thanks for listening, and join us next time for the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
You know, I want to send a warning out to all you Christian parents out there. I don't care if you live in England or New Zealand, the United States of America, Canada, wherever. All you Christian parents out there. I want you to take time out to listen to what I have to say here, please. And really, this pertains to American schools, but it could also tie into schools in Europe. If you enroll your kids in today's public schools, all you parents need to know the following things. Your children who go to government-sponsored schools, public schools, today are receiving a third-rate education. They are. And if you don't believe it, I want to present you with just a flavor of the research that shows exactly this to be true. The Washington Post. The Washington Post. Now, that's not really a conservative outfit there, the Washington Post. Recently reported United States 15-year-olds trailed their peers from many industrialized countries. The average science score of a United States student lagged behind those in 16 out of 30 countries in the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The United States students were further behind in math and trailing their counterparts in 23 countries. Public school children are also being indoctrinated to embrace a humanist, socialist worldview. As students are continually being dumbed down here in America's classrooms, they're being shaped to believe less like God-fearing Christians. They're taking that out of them, folks. The public schools, ran by the National Education Association, are ripping that out of your child's mind and presenting them with something other than what you teach at home as far as the Christian religion or what you believe in. Now, a 20-year study that involved approximately 60 students who, yes, came from Christian families, showed that nearly 9 out of 10 youth from Christian homes attending public schools are consistently abandoning the Christian worldview in favor of humanistic socialist worldview. Now, parents, this would mean that the students have intentionally rejected the basic tenets of biblical theism in favor of basic tenets of humanism and socialism. They have abandoned their Christian beliefs because they have been taught humanistic and socialist ideology are the way to look at the way the world is today. They have thrown out parents, your children, they have thrown out all the ideas that you have taught at home about the Christian religion, your beliefs. It is being extracted from your children on a daily basis, Monday through Friday. Now, there have been reports 75% of public school American youth brought up in Christian households disown their Christian faith by their first year of college. First year of college. They have thrown their Christian beliefs out the window. Your child has a dramatically greater chance of being subject to detrimental social experiences if they attend a public school here in the United States. A congressional report released in the year 2007 estimated that 1 out of every 10 children are subject to sexual misconduct by an employee of a school, sometimes between kindergarten and the 12th grade, and many abusers have several victims, and most get away with it. A 2007 report revealed that about 1 out of every 3 United States high school students see drug dealing, illegal drug use, or students high or drunk at least once a week on their school grounds, on their school campus. Reports in 2005 showed an increase in bullying. In fact, 54% of students were harassed verbally and 51% socially were excluded or ostracized. Now, we all know that bullying is a really big deal in the United States, all the way up to the National Football League, where a 330-pound guy, 6'5", is complaining and wringing his hands that he's being bullied. There have always been bullies. On the school ground, in the workplace, always. And when I was a young guy growing up, I didn't dare go home to my father and tell him that Joe Blow down the streets beat me up and taking my lunch money. Because you know what he'd tell me? Gary, you get your ass down there, and you fight him tooth and nail until one of you walk away, and when you come home bloodied and beat up and your clothes ripped apart, well, by God, I'll buy you some new clothes, but at least I know you're standing up for yourself. That's old school. That's the way it was back in the 50s and early 60s. But we've got away from that here in the United States. Now we come to the rescue of every little nosebleed, skin nose, scrape finger. And these kids come home crying and their parents march off, and they just, I understand that if a bully gets to the point where he's physically abusing somebody day after day, and that person just doesn't have the physical strength or the wherewithal to take up for himself or herself, I can understand that part of bullying. But I can't understand it when kids today are coddled and held close to the chest and awarded a trophy, even if though they were losers on their team, whatever. It's tearing our kids and our infrastructure as social human beings in this United States apart. Now, when we're talking about education in America, in the public schools, we're not just talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. Oh no, there's a whole litany of other things involved with the curriculums of those that the National Education Association teaches from in our public school system nationwide, coast to coast, north to south. They don't only teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, and even those school books are riddled with socialist ideas and ideology blended in to a simple math test or book. No, there's sensitivity training, there's sexual education training, there's mental awareness training, you name it, there's all kinds of training. It's not training, it's indoctrination. And we folks that homeschool our children, I don't know if that's such a big thing in England or in all the other Western European countries. I don't know if homeschooling is something that a lot of individuals do. Some people do, or it's just not done. But here in America, we folks that can do it, because you see here now, economic times are so bad that both the man and the woman has to work just to keep their head above water, just to keep from sinking from the economic woes that have been leveled on them by this Obama administration. Regime. That it's almost impossible to homeschool your children. But some people, some families work it out. Some people, some families figure out a way to do it. The best education? The home-educated child typically scores 15 to 30 percentile points above public school students on standardized academic achievement tests. 15 to 30% higher. Why is that? Why? Because they're in a small environment where there's only them and their maybe a brother or sister with them, that the mom or dad that are teaching these children, home educating them, has more time to devote to those 2 or 3 kids or however many's in the family. And they're not teaching them all this BS that is being rammed down our children's throats in public school. The best social environment? The home educated are doing well. Typically above average on measures of social, emotional, and psychological development. Now, research measures include peer interaction, self-concept, leadership skills, family cohesion, participation in community service, and self-esteem, which always is a biggie, self-esteem. It seems like in America today, the girls have finally caught on to self-esteem, and they're standing head and shoulders above the American male of the same age levels. It seems like the American male today, the young American male, is in the same boat that our young ladies and young girls were in back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Lack of self-esteem. And all of us that pay attention know why the American male is in such a mess. Such a freaking mess. Now, you know, spiritual training, you don't get it in public schools. You do not get it. Homeschooled youth, yes, they do get it. When they come from families that believe in Jesus Christ and believe in the Christian way of life, they get their spiritual training. Now, I know there are doubters out there regarding one or more of these positive assertions about homeschooling, but those are the facts, folks. I encourage you to investigate it yourself if you don't believe Gary Gatehouse. Go out and turn the pages, get on the internet, and investigate it yourself. Now, before we go to break, allow me to help you out with one category, which appears to be the strongest objection to homeschooling: proper socialization. Now, studies showed that home-educated children are doing very well in this category. For instance, the Discovery Institute released a report on homeschooling written by senior fellow Dr. Patricia Lines. She described several controlled studies comparing the social skills of homeschoolers and non-homeschoolers. The homeschoolers scored as well adjusted. The homeschool kids demonstrated fewer behavioral problems, Dr. Lines concluded. There is no basis to question the social development of homeschool children, period. But some out there, they're not convinced of what I just said. Well, then consider this. The research done by Drs. Thomas Smedley, who found that homeschoolers have superior socialization skills. Home learners ranked in the 84th percentile compared to public school students who were drastically lower, all the way down to the 23rd percentile. Now, that's saying something. That's something you can hang your hat on. You know what? It is easy to see that keeping your children in public schools is in fact impairs your child's academically, socially, and for Christian parents, most importantly, spiritually. This is why the soon-to-be-released documentary Indoctrination is so critical, not only for the church in America, but for our nation's future as well. Children that are being homeschooled are exposed to a better quality education, mentally and spiritually. And like I said, if there's any way you can homeschool your kids and get them the correct education, the good education, and turn them out as good students, do it. Do it. It's one thing that we do that later down the road, when you see your little son or daughter grow up and be well-adjusted, educated men and women, young men and women, you know that you played a big part in that by self-schooling your kids. But folks, just remember one thing. If there is any way to pull your children out of public schools, do it. They are being indoctrinated by secularist, morally bankrupt teachers. Not all, but I venture to say the majority are. Homeschool them. If you can't afford it, put them in a Christian school. Your children are under attack on a daily basis while they're inside that classroom, inside that schoolhouse. And you as parents are under attack by those teachers standing in front of your kids. They are attacking your morals, your Christian faith, by the very people that claim to be teachers who are in fact morally bankrupt, socialist, left-wing indoctrinators. Get your children out of public school, if you can, before it's too late. We'll be back after a few short messages.
80. 30. 50.
Every mile brings us closer.
25.
Every mile in a city near you.
75.
Help us stop diabetes.
100.
Join the Tour de Cure.
60.
Register to ride.
36.
Or sponsor a rider.
50.
Call 1-888-DIABETES or visit us online at diabetes.org/tour. How many miles will you ride?
25.
Hey, how the hell are you? Welcome to Jack in the Box. I'm Jack, and I'll be happy to fill your order, if you know what I mean.
I'd like a Jack burger and a large fries.
Sorry, pal, we're cleaning the grease fryer. We don't have any French fries today.
Oh, okay. Then just give me a small order of fries, please.
Look, Chief, maybe you didn't hear me. I said we don't have any fries today, so how about something else?
Oh, okay. Then just give me an order of fries.
Listen up, pal. Who put the straw in strawberry?
Nature did.
That's right, nature did. Who put the ape in apricot?
Nature did.
That's right, nature did. Now listen carefully. Who put the freak in French fries?
There ain't no freak in French fries.
That's what I've been trying to tell you, butt breath. There ain't no freak in French fries. Now get out of my sight before I shove your teeth so far down your throat you'll have to sit on a Jack burger to eat it. Oh, and have a nice day.
The Getting After Lefty Show with your host, Gary Gatehouse. Gary rides herd on the Silver-Tongued Devil from the south side of Chicago, better known as Barack Hussein Obama Jr., sometimes called Barry. Gary Gatehouse, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 4 p.m. CST. Make sure you're up there. Listen to what Gary has to say.
Who are on the road must have a code that you can live by And so, become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, their father's hell did slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they picked, the one you know by.
Teach your children well.
Don't you ever.
That song has a lot to say. It really does, ladies and gentlemen. If you listen to the words, let them feed on your dreams. And know they love you. That's the biggest payback a parent can get, is to know his kids love him. Know his kids, mom knows their kids love him. And when you raise your kids and your children in an environment of love, an environment of understanding, an environment of rules, an environment where they have to understand responsibility for themselves and the people around them, and responsibility for the things that they have to learn, their chores, whatever, and you're going to turn out some pretty good kids. Now, I reflect back on my life when I was raised in the 50s. My father was a hard individual. He grew up during the Depression. He fought in World War II along with his brothers and uncles. They came back in, and as we say down here in Texas, they didn't have a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out of. But they worked, and they toiled, and they built a better life for me and my brothers and sisters and my mom. My father worked his backside off, sometimes working 2 and 3 jobs. We hardly ever seen him. But when we did, he was there for us. If I played in a baseball game, he made every effort in the world to find a way to at least get a couple innings in when I was pitching baseball, whatever. On the other hand, my mother was a nurturing, loving individual that raised us children to appreciate what we had, which wasn't much, but to never complain. Never to complain. My mom and dad didn't have much, like I said. But I never heard them complain, ever. I never heard them complain about what somebody else had down the road. I never heard them complain that somebody else down the road had this better and that better. I guess they didn't have the time, or they were just good people, and they just kept on trucking. And we kids grew up to appreciate nature. We grew up as Christians. We grew up as people who respected our elders. Well, I remember when I was a little kid, I would go to my grandmother's house. And sometimes it would be a family gathering where my grandmother and grandfather's children, my aunts and uncles, would be there, and their children, and my mom and dad, and me and my brothers and sisters, and my grandmother and grandfather. He was a barber, and she was a mom, a stay-at-home mom. They would cook up a big Sunday dinner, and pies and cakes, and just a Sunday dinner, not anything special. And we would all get together. And I remember sitting in the living room thinking I was a big dude because I was in there with all the big guys, the parents, the males of the families. And they would all be talking about what they were doing on their jobs or whatever. And if a woman came in, my grandmother, my mom, or one of my aunts would come into the room, every man that was sitting down would stand up in respect for her. And if one of the kids didn't get stood up, one of the male kids didn't get stood up, when the woman come in, they got a little boot in the butt and told to stand up. And after the lady left the room, my aunts or my mom or my grandmother, some male in there would explain to that kid why you should stand up and out of respect for those women. They work hard, they would be told. They work hard every day, mending your clothes, washing your clothes, cooking your food, cleaning your house, and giving you love every day. That's all missing today. It's all gone by the wayside. We don't have time as families to even practice any iota of that. We're all going here and going there, and we never hardly ever get together as a family. We never sit down to dinner anymore, most of us. We're too busy texting on our damn cell phones, too busy watching some freaking TV reality show that we don't have time for each other. And one of the tenets, one of the building blocks of American society, and I know it is in Europe as well, is respect for your elders. It is flat gone. I was at a restaurant with my wife, my daughter and her husband, and my 2 grandchildren, not more than a month ago, sitting down to have a nice meal, and there were some people a couple of tables over that were sitting there using the F word and every damn word you can think of like it was just common everyday discussion words. And they didn't care who was there. Young kids, little kids, big kids, moms and dads, they didn't care. It didn't bother them. I remember when I was a kid, I played basketball one night and I made a basket. I was like 9 years old. And now some of the big guys there said, "Man, you are a lucky bastard." And I went home at the kitchen table. I didn't know what they meant. And I sit down at the table, and my father always said, "Okay, what did you guys do at school today? What did you do in play?" and all that. And everybody took their turn. When it came around to me, he said, "Gary, what did you do today?" And I said, "I played some basketball, and I made a basket from 10 feet out, and I'm a lucky bastard." Well, my dad said, "Hey, Gary, let's go in the next room here." He took me in my mom and dad's bedroom, and he set me on the bed, and he grabbed me by the shirt, and he said, "Listen, young man, you don't sit at the kitchen table and use words like that around your mother or your sister." And he said, "I'm going to tell you what that word means. And it's an insult to women, and it's an insult to men. So don't use it anymore. You understand?" And I told him, "Yes, sir," and that was the end of that. When I was growing up, I never heard the F word muttered by anybody in my family or extended family, ever. I never heard anybody use any word against God. I never did, and that's the honest truth. And now we have got people that they've got the most filthy mouths in the world, and they're out there spewing all of that out for everybody to hear, and they don't care. They flat don't care. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about America. I don't know how it is in your country. Maybe it's like this, I don't know. But the respect for each other in my country has gone. The respect for individuals and individuals' selves are gone. People are running around like they're bouncing off walls, like they're in some insane asylum or something over here. They just don't have it together anymore. They have too much, they expect too much, and they want it right now, and if they don't get it, they start whining and crying. And that is not the way America used to be. We used to be rugged individuals that if you got knocked down, you got back up, and by God, got back in the fight. That's not that way anymore. Most people today run and hide under their desk, go hide in another room. They don't want to be involved. They're afraid they're going to be called a racist. They're afraid they're going to be called to do something that's politically incorrect, and they just fade away, melt down into their boots. And it's wrong. It's wrong. You can't run a country. You cannot be Americans. You cannot be a society that acts like that. That's the way Rome ended up, on the trash heap of has-been countries, because they went that way. They lost all touch with what Rome was all about. And that's what America is doing today. It is being ripped out of our children's head at school. The history of America, if it's not right, they make it politically correct so people that were even involved in that history are injected into it to make everything just hunky-dory for women, men, homosexuals, whatever. That's just the way America is today. We are getting beat daily about the head from individuals on the left and the right who tell us you can't say this, you can't do that because you're going to offend somebody. Well, this is one individual that was I'm going to say what I want to say. And if it offends somebody, that is too bad. You can call me down, you can send me an email, you can do whatever you want. But Gary Gatehouse is going to say, I'm going to use my First Amendment, and I'm going to say what I darn well want to say. And I'm not going to be drug into this politically correct browbeating that most Americans are today. Until that time comes when they got me nailed up against a wall somewhere and a gun against my head, then that is the way it's going to go with Gary Gatehouse. I'll just go out that way because you're not going to steal my freedoms away from me. You're not going to rip them out of me or my children or my grandchildren or my daughters and sons. You're just not going to do it. And I wish to hell more Americans felt that way. I know there's a lot of us. I know there's a lot of us at CPR that feel that way. But by gosh, we're a small fraction, I think, of what the rest of the people in America and probably European countries think. They just think completely different than they did 50 or 60 years ago. It's a different world. This is Gary Gatehouse. I'm sorry I went off on this tangent, this tirade, but I just had to get it off my chest. And I hope you understand it, and I hope some of you maybe even agree with what I'm saying. So until next show, this is Gary Gatehouse saying, I hope you have a great day. Say a prayer for our military and their families. All you folks over in England, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and everybody on the Pacific Rim, whatever. God bless every one of you, and say a prayer for those poor people in the Philippines. I lived there for a while, and those are great people. Say a prayer for them. God loves those folks, and God will help them. Until next show, good day.
Talk Radio. Ghostfighter Radio.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Money and Other Things Financial. This is your host, Bostonian, coming to you live on November the 10th, the day before Veterans Day, and I'm calling from a very cool Boston, city of Boston here, where we've had the temperatures for about a week now in the 40s, but no snow yet, thankfully, and it's pretty much just some chilly weather. I guess you got to expect that in November. Anyway, welcome to the show. I hope you enjoyed that medley of the Armed Forces songs, the 5 services, starting with the Coast Guard, the Air Force, the Marine Corps song, the Navy song, and the Army song. So we're going to be celebrating the holiday tomorrow. Those of you that have a 3-day weekend, I might encourage you to get out, and if you have any Veterans Day observances going on in your area, then get out there and show some recognition for the veterans that have put their lives on the line in defending this country over the years, and now we see it under attack for the very principles that they fought for. And you know, I was thinking that a lot of times when we support some of the war efforts, many times we don't really know what we're supporting, but those soldiers that did it with the intention of defending the homeland against foreign enemies, even if the government was misleading us, those people have served in honor, and they deserve our support and our thanks, gratitude, and we when we observe the services for them tomorrow, let's think of that these people did their best. They did it with good intentions, and they may have been misled by their own government, and a lot of us are finding out a lot of that going on right now, that we're not at all happy with what we're seeing, and that's why there's so much rancor and discord in the country. We have a view of our own government as being the main concern of Americans is that they have a dysfunctional government. So we need to correct it. We have a system which allows us to correct it, and so if we work within that system and are steadfast and persistent, tenacious, and use our 3 V's that I've said many times, your voice, your valuables, which is your time, and your money, and your vote, you're doing your best. What happens after that is in God's hands, and we know the motto of our country is, in God we trust. And with all of the troubles we had, have you been following what's going on in the Philippines? The Philippine typhoon deaths climb into the thousands. This was from this morning. As many as 10,000 people are believed dead in one Philippine city alone after one of the worst storms ever recorded unleashed ferocious winds and giant waves that washed away homes and schools. Corpses hung from tree branches, and was scattered along sidewalks and among flattened buildings, while looters raided grocery stores and gas stations in search of food, fuel, and water. Officials projected the death toll could climb even higher when emergency crews reach areas cut off by flooding and landslides. Even in the disaster-prone Philippines, which regularly contends with earthquakes, volcanoes, and tropical storms, Typhoon Haiyan appears to be the deadliest natural disaster on record. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of problems in this country, a lot of concerns, but we can be thankful that we have a life and our protection against these type of calamities. We have other types of things that we're fighting. We have to keep fighting them, but be thankful for not having to deal with such natural disasters, and give thanks to our Creator for that, and hope that He protects us. But with the way we're going, you'd begin to wonder how much protection will be afforded from above when we operate the way we do. Well, anyway, I want to give you the call-in number. The chat room is open. And the call-in number, as usual, is 914-803-4379. 914-803-4379. I see there is a guest in the chat room. How are you doing, guest? I hope you're enjoying the show. We'll be, maybe some other guests will be in to chat with you shortly. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what else is in the news? Well, we have the election in Virginia. The one in Virginia didn't go our way. We wanted to get conservative Ken Cuccinelli elected to be the governor of Virginia. He didn't make it, although I read that he did real well in the rural parts of the state. But it seems as though in the big cities of every state seems to have come under the control of the Democrats. Maybe it's because they are promising to the people things that in the long run will not be good for them, as it makes them dependent on the government, and it also makes the government become unable to deliver. Many times politicians make promises to get the votes, and then they can't deliver. We'd be much better off if we had politicians that told us the facts, told us we can't afford something such as the Affordable Care Act, and start living within our means instead of operating with these trillion-dollar debts. 17 trillion annual deficits of $1 trillion and accumulated debts of over 17 trillion, I believe it's at now. And in just a short time after they raised the debt ceiling, it went up another 300 billion or so. So this is not sustainable. It will not continue, and at some point in time, it's going to collapse like a house of cards. Anybody that can look at history and have some common sense, I think, can see that this is only a temporary high that the country is getting from this quantitative easing and money printing and stimulus that's going on at the Federal Reserve. It appears as though that the banks, the Federal Reserve, and the government are somewhat in collusion to maintain their reign over the country and the financial benefits that they get from it. But more and more people are waking up, and a lot of times we've written off Hollywood. But Hollywood, I got a story and a clip for you here about two Hollywood actors that are coming aboard the conservative wagon. They find that they are now speaking out in favor of conservatism, and I'm not too familiar with some of their movies or acting careers, but I have one here. It's a clip that I want to play for you, and the headline is that a huge movie star shows he couldn't care less what Hollywood thinks in revealing chat on Constitution and the principles of liberty. His name is Vince Vaughn, and he was at a cookout sponsored by, I believe, Ron Paul. And let's listen to what Vince had to say about these issues.
Vince, when we had our wine, we spoke a little politics, and I know you're conservative, or I guess you're conservative. Do you count yourself as a conservative?
I do, yeah. I mean, I'm very supportive of Ron Paul, but I've always been, more conservative than not.
And is this something your parents were? I know we talked a little about your dad, and your dad just sort of had that hard, tough work ethic and played sports and football and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think my father came from a very working class background with a lot of people that leaned more on the Democratic side of things, and I think as a guy that sort of, worked very hard and sort of put himself through school and stuff, he was more conservative for sure.
And you're just very, I always say that I'm not conservative, but I've been made conservative by the direction that the country's been going, which is, I've always been pretty liberal on stuff like abortion and marijuana and stuff like that, but in terms of you pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps and getting your own shit together or feeding your own kid, I've always been all for that. Not to save me money, but because you need to feed your kid so that your kid won't resent you and that so your kid won't end up in rehab. That's just me. But I don't know if you are conservative just sort of across the board or it's just a fiscal thing.
I really like Ron Paul, and I think that what you come as you get older is you just get less trust in the government running anything, and that you start to realize when you really go back and you look at the Constitution and the principles of liberty, the real purpose of government is to protect the individual's right to, sort of think and pursue what they have interest in, and that when you start drawing the lines of saying, well, as a society, we think this is inappropriate, we're going to pass laws to protect them from themselves or take things away to protect themselves or move money from here to there, that you realize that you'll wake up with corruption and, without the unintended consequences, you'll wake up with a lot of created problems that didn't exist prior.
Has this caused any friction for you and some of your Hollywood friends?
I think most people, as they've gotten to know me and talk to me about stuff, I think there can be sort of a bias against people who don't sort of agree with what's popular. But I think if you talk to people, sort of how you present it over time, I think people, kind of understand where I stand, and I can disagree with people and not have it be the forefront of all conversations. But I think as time goes on, it starts to get a little harder to argue some of the principles that you start to see, the state of some of these conditions and what's happening. I think, people start losing, faith. I think the point of view is to say that can you elect officials to use force in certain areas to make things go great? And I think that starts to become a harder thing to reference where that's working.
So you're going to be in town?
Well, there's some words of conservative support from actor Vince Vaughn. And I also, in getting ready for the show, came across another Hollywood actor who wants Obama out of office. He says, I just don't like this guy. And he talks about why he's breaking his silence. His name is Ken Wall, W-A-H-L, known for playing several iconic roles in the 1980s and 1990s. He has been increasingly vocal about the current state of affairs in America. He has openly decried the Obama administration, made his voice heard about the atrocities at Dr. Kermit Gosnell's clinic, that was the abortion clinic in Pennsylvania, and is even considering pleas from some that he run for public office. Well, we had another Hollywood actor that ran for office, and Ronald Reagan, and maybe Ken Wall will follow in similar footsteps. Considering the rare occurrence of a Hollywood actor coming out as a conservative and an especially vocal one, The Blaze spoke with Wall to learn more about his worldview. The actor, according to his own account, holds views with little rooting in partisan politics as he embraces values over party ideology. His background is, he says, my family was very apolitical. We were just lower middle class working people and sitting around at the dinner table. Politics was never a discussion. Wall told The Blaze by phone of his childhood. It was always about working, and I never considered myself a conservative. I never put a label on myself. Wall noted that he was taught that the world doesn't owe people anything and that it's essential for individuals to work for themselves and their families and to take care of their own. I didn't realize I was a conservative until after I got into show business, he continued. But rather than lambasting Hollywood for its politics or claiming that he was denigrated over his right of center views, Wall said quite the opposite, citing inaccuracies that some conservatives advance about the entertainment industry. I think there has been some misconceptions about that. In all my experience, I had a very serious spinal injury. My entire career was only 11 years long. I can tell you that no one in Hollywood ever asked me for my political affiliation or my religious beliefs or anything like that. He said, what they care about is making money. They said Wall agrees that Hollywood elite are overwhelmingly liberal. And he is choosing now to be so vocal about his conservative views. His two-word answer would likely resonate with many Republicans. Nancy Pelosi, he quickly responded, is the two words that has made him vocal about his conservative views. And that's the truth. I'm a very happy, content private person, even when I was acting before I got hurt. I never had a publicist. I never had PR help, that's public relations help, he added. I always wanted my work to do the talking for me. I did very little publicity. But when Pelosi famously said, but we have to pass the health care bill so that you can find out, what's in it, in the midst of the contentious health care debate, Walker said he could no longer contain himself. The day when Nancy Pelosi said, let's pass the bill and we'll find out what's in it, I almost choked on my coffee, he explained. But what was even more astonishing after that was that there was no pushback in the media about that. I was godsmacked. His statement made something click for the actor, and he decided to let his viewpoints to be known. Something just clicked, and I thought something's gone terribly wrong in America. It's what it's come to, he added. That moment flipped the switch for me. So with his injuries inhibiting his acting career, Wall said he believes God has a plan for him now in light of his shift in focus. He'd be rooted in politics and commentary, noting that he became active in 1992, injured in 1992, an injury that led to deep depression over self-perceived uselessness, that he went through a very challenging time. So there is an actor that is maybe starting a new career. See how things can sometimes change. You know that you think the end of the line, and it turns out to be an opportunity. What is that expression? If life throws you lemons, and just go out and make some lemonade. In other words, turn the negative into a positive by not getting depressed about the what has happened to you, and just get out there and find the rainbow in the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or the silver lining in the clouds. How many of you saw Ted Cruz on the Tonight Show? Well, I watched it the other night, and I was quite impressed with the senator from the Lone Star State. He was on for about 10 or 15 minutes, I believe, with a break in between, and I would like to tell you about one question Jay Leno asked him about the social conservative issue of homosexual marriage, and I think he handled it pretty well. He says that he personally believes that marriage should be between one man and one woman. But then he said that he thinks that each state should decide for themselves. The people of that state should decide. And, of course, the majority of our states do not want it. My state of Massachusetts here never got a chance to vote on it. It was put through the judicial and legislative process, and when we tried to get it on the ballot, we were stopped by the legislature. We did not get the necessary votes in 2 constitutional conventions to get that on the ballot. That will always be one of the worst things in my life that I find happened to the state of Massachusetts. And we're not through with it yet. Maybe there's a way to get the people to see the dangers of going down this path of abandoning moral principles, and we seem to be untied from our moorings. And when that happens, in the analogy with a ship, it usually ends up badly, and the ship may end up on the rocks as a complete disaster. So we can turn things around with his life, this hope, ladies and gentlemen. So let's continue on and continue to fight for our viewpoints. Tom Brokaw was also on TV. He was on the Letterman show, and he was saying that the Tea Party has every right to fight for their views of what they think is in the best interest of the country. And they don't need to get painted as terrorists or name-called. You can disagree with them. You can, just as we disagree with the left side of the spectrum, that we don't think their views are to make people dependent on the government or to, run the financial administration of the country to such an extent that we become massively in debt and do not live within our means. So the Tea Party only believes what they advocate. It will be much better for the vast amount of people. Not everybody will be happy with it. Some people like to have become dependent on the government, or at least they don't do anything to sever those dependency ties. But I think most people want to be independent, and I think if we give people the fishing pole instead of constantly giving them the fish, they can become independent and develop a good life for themselves and or their family. All right, well, I'm going to give you the financial indicators right now. We're going to take the stock market will be closed tomorrow, I believe. I actually haven't checked that, but I would think it would be closed on the holiday. But anyway, it's closed now. This is Sunday evening. And I can give you the gold market is open, so let me give you the current price on the yellow metal. Gold is currently selling at the spot market price is $12.8630 an ounce. It is under $1,300 again. It seems to be flip-flopping around that $1,300 mark, looking for a direction. It did get took some hit there last week when the jobs report came out, but there's a lot of detail about those what appeared to be good numbers, and it had to do with the government shutdown and different features that I won't go into now. But gold is at $12.8630 an ounce, down $3.20 since it opened today. Silver is at $21.36, down 16 cents. The Dow closed Friday at 761.78, up 167.80. The Nasdaq at 3919.23, up 61.90. The U.S. dollar was up 3 cents at 81.24, and crude oil was at 94.70, up 10 cents. So we'll see what happens this week. It might be a shortened week if the markets are closed tomorrow. I apologize for not finding that out, but you can all check, and I'm sure in the morning you'll know pretty quick whether the market is open or not. But I want to play for you now a clip of the American Advisor, and this is Joe Battaglia speaking out. And while he's talking, if you want to call in, the call-in number again is 914-803-4379. Joe is going to be talking. He does the weekend review, and in this clip I'm playing, he talks about manipulation. So let's listen to Joe Battaglia, the American Advisor.
Heard on the news this week that several oil companies are accused of colluding with traders to manipulate oil prices. Isn't it amazing that we see all of this manipulation, this criminal activity that goes on in the foreign exchange market, for example, or with regard to derivatives or mortgages and so forth, and nobody really knows much about it or cares much about it here in the United States. In other countries, it's front page news. In other countries, they turn their TV on, they hear all about this. Why don't we here in the United States. I think that if we did, these markets would in a considerably different fashion than they do right now. And why is it that U.S. companies seem to be always at the forefront of this, of these manipulations and so forth? When you look at the precious metal sector or the dollar, don't you think that's also manipulated? I mean, we know they manipulate the dollar. They manipulate the foreign exchange market, so that is the dollar, basically. They manipulate that. But who does the manipulation? Why the biggest, richest outfits in the world? That's the big bank, so forth, that have all of the money to be able to do these things. Who gets the politicians elected? Why these same kinds of folks get the politicians elected. Why do we not hear about this on our news? Well, because those guys are the biggest advertisers, and the television stations and news outlets don't want to get them upset and lose their business. So, this thing all ties together. If you look beyond the surface of what we see, then you begin to get a little better picture. Can it go on forever? Well, it might go on for a long time, but it can't go on forever. At some point in time, these currencies of the world are going to be exposed for what they are, merely Ponzi schemes. You can't keep pumping up the money supply like the Fed is doing forever. You can do it for a long time, maybe, but not forever. That's essentially new world order, if you will, where there will be a new form of international reserve currency, and that may be some composite that currency, something we haven't thought much about, perhaps. But it is very likely to have some kind of a gold component to provide stability. At least that's the view of many analysts, and certainly my humble opinion.
Yeah, those are wise words from Joe, and I want to play a little more of his Weekend Review show, but let's take a little break so I can find the spot in the program, and we'll be back to play that for you. Stay with us. Well, welcome back, everyone. This is your host, Bostonian, and I have another big piece of the clip from the American Advisor that I want you to hear. This has to do with him talking about a analyst named Jim Sinclair that I think you'll find very interesting. So let's come back and listen to the American Advisor on financial matters. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, that's coming right up.
I said earlier, Jim Sinclair is a very, very well-known market analyst in the precious metal sector. He's been one of the most successful gold investors of all time. And by the way, he hasn't always been, a massive bull on the gold market. He's not what I would call a dyed-in-the-wool gold bug. He's not irrational. He is very rational and has made billions of dollars in the gold mining industry. Here's an article written by Lawrence Williams, and it's entitled Jim Sinclair's $50,000 gold call. Let's hope it doesn't happen. Jim Sinclair, who has a tremendous following within the gold investment community, has predicted in an interview that gold will reach $50,000, but this envisions currency collapse and hyperinflation. Going on, it reads, Jim Sinclair did suggest that in what he sees as a definitely possible scenario, gold could hit a massive $50,000 an ounce, perhaps by 2020. But the circumstances under which this might happen are not what anyone, particularly in the USA, should wish for, however much of a gold bug you may be. Before writing Sinclair off as delusional in his views, one should be aware that he has made similarly over-the-top sounding calls in gold in the past and been proven correct, and that's a little scary. While a $50,000 call might sound a little extreme, his short to medium-term forecasts are more conservative and worth considering. Sinclair is an avowed poacher turned gamekeeper as far as precious metals are concerned, having been a major precious metal trader and broker back in the 1970s. But since then, he has both worked on the side of the regulators in trying to unwind the Hunt Brothers silver market positions back in the early 80s, and later setting up his own company, and is still hoping to bring a gold mine on stream in Tanzania. He also remains one of the most followed gold sector proponents out there, sometimes known as Mr. Gold, with his reputation earned from his accurate predictions of what happened to the gold price in the past. His current shorter-term predictions are that gold will hit $1,650 this year, rise to $2,400, fall back, and then move up to between $3,200 and $3,500 by the end of 2016. Those are reasonable predictions, and they don't require hyperinflation to get to those levels, just a continuation of what the Fed has been doing and our politicians have been doing. Unlike many, reading on, it says, but he also sees unprecedented manipulation of prices in the precious metal markets, which has been distorting the figures with huge amounts of paper gold, so far being successful in keeping the gold price down, but he does see this coming to an end. Manipulation? Oh, heaven forbid. They only manipulate the foreign exchange markets, or the mortgage markets, or interest rates, or oil and gas, or electricity, as we saw in California about 10 years ago. So there's manipulation in the gold market. Oh, heaven forbid. Is there manipulation in the stock market? Come on. Of course there is. That's the way these things work. So it says in the article, unlike many of the pro-gold commentators, Sinclair has not just demonized Ben Bernanke and the implementation of quantitative easing, instead praising him for his success in warding off what would have been a major depression. However, the inevitable result in any case will likely be the necessity to continue the program indefinitely. So where does this $50,000 gold prediction come from? Towards the end of the decade, Sinclair sees a great reset as physical gold becomes emancipated from paper gold. We assume this will be exacerbated too by the recent flight of gold from west to east, leaving Western inventories of physical precious metal depleted, while Eastern demand continues to soak up all new supplies. But most of all, he foresees a collapse in the value of currencies, with debt continuing to soar and thus debilitating currencies. This would be hyperinflation by any other name, with precious metals providing the only stable wealth protector. So, do we want hyperinflation? Of course not. It would be bad for all of us. So I'll read two more paragraphs, then you'll get the picture here. He says, in effect, he sees this as devastating the U.S. economy in particular. It wouldn't necessarily be a totally global phenomenon, although many other economies would certainly suffer in parallel. And with gold priced in dollars, the yellow metal's value would soar in dollar terms, if not necessarily in all other currencies. But perhaps $50,000 gold is too high to contemplate, at least within the timetable currency, and perhaps that much of the Western world will have collapsed at a catastrophic pace, which will be devastating for much of the population. Perhaps one should pray that this time Jim Sinclair is proved wrong. He has not always been correct in his short to medium-term gold predictions. Let's hope he's wrong with this long-term one, but don't bank on it. So, have we seen hyperinflation? In my lifetime, we've seen it quite a bit. We've seen hyperinflation in European countries. We've seen hyperinflation in Israel. We've seen hyperinflation in countries in Latin America and in Africa and so forth. So don't think that hyperinflation is impossible. It is not impossible. Lastly, let's talk about what some of these big players, the most respected companies in the world have been doing. Well, for example, HSBC Bank posted third quarter profits of $5.1 billion due to cost controls and fewer losses on bad loans. Oh my, fewer losses on their bad loans. They're among the companies that have been paying monster fines, and in spite of the monster billions of dollars in fines these banks have been paying, they're still making billions and billions of dollars in profit. $5 billion up through the third quarter. They might be making a net of $6 billion or $7 billion. Do they pay any taxes? I don't think so. These companies that make this monster amounts of money don't pay taxes. You want to talk about welfare? We all complain about welfare, myself included, because I think it's a bad system the way we've got it set up. But goodness gracious, who gets the most welfare? It's the big banks, the big farmers, the big oil companies. Need I go on further with this? Hello out there, wake up. It is the richest of the rich that get the most from the government. Do we need all these massive weapon systems that we buy that really don't create all that many jobs? It's the richest of the rich weapons suppliers and manufacturers that get all the government handouts. This is money given to them, basically, from the taxpayers. And we wonder why we have such massive debt. You can't fight wars that cost trillions of dollars that have no benefit or no real meaning for us here in the United States and expect that we're going to reduce our deficits. Can't be done. You can't fix it by cutting back a few social programs or eliminating welfare. I mean, you could totally eliminate all welfare, and it wouldn't have hardly any impact on our debt or our budget deficits. So, these are just things that we should be looking at. Then,
yes, Joe makes some good points there, ladies and gentlemen, that we talk a lot about the people receiving welfare benefits, but when you look at the big picture, there are many other things we should also look at, and that is the corporate welfare. All of these things need to be looked at. The times when they get us into wars, we have to look at that much more closely. We basically have to do our due diligence and stop just accepting everything the media is feeding us. And I think people are now questioning the media, and thankfully the Internet is providing alternative media. We see different places on the Internet that are getting more and more listeners and viewers. So let's keep that up. Let's provide the mainstream media with a lot of competition, and hopefully we'll get the truth and be able to turn this country around and get it back on the path that the founders intended. Well, we're coming to the end of the show here. The Veterans Day, as they say, is tomorrow. Get out and try to catch one of the Veterans Day observances in your community. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks. It'll be near Thanksgiving when we meet again. The next show is on November 25th, 2013, on Blog Talk Radio on the day before, which is Sunday, the November 24th, 2013. So I hope you got some information that might help you tonight, and we didn't have any call-ins, but we'll be back again in 2 weeks, and hopefully we'll get more people dialoguing with us so we can find out what's on their mind, what we can do together as we dialogue together, and not get always name-calling and vitriol that goes on between people, and just try to reconcile our differences rationally, and maybe we can make some headway in turning our country back to where it serves we the people. So God bless you all, and God bless America. Good night, everyone.
happiness, all I want from our Congress. Man, they sure did make a mess of our country. Doesn't take a genius to see what those crooks are doing to us. Robbing us blind, it's obvious, lock them up and toss the key. Certainty is getting taxes, those on your back almost freedom bushwhackers. Man, you're like liberty hackers, hugging on our cheese. Taxes without representation,
Welcome to the Conscience of Kansas radio program.
Well, if you ask me where I come from, here's what I tell everyone. I was born by God's dear grace in an extraordinary place where the stars and stripes and the eagle fly.
Hello, radio listeners, and welcome to the Conscience of Kansas radio program. My name is Dr. Paul A. Ibbotson. I am your host, and you're listening to the fastest-growing, most conservative talk radio in the state of Kansas and beyond. A big shout-out to all of our radio listeners tuning in from around the state. We have another great show for you today. In the first half of the program, we're going to be talking about a ton of Kansas news. I don't think I'll be able to get all in today, but as always, I will give it a vigorous shot. We're going to talk about a new Facebook page for Kansas Moderates. I call it a small pen for rhinos at the zoo. We have a new official report from the Heritage Foundation on the Obamacare Act, and it is stated plainly, we here in Kansas are going to get screwed worse than most states when it comes to higher premiums with Obamacare. How bad is it? I'm going to tell you today. More violent liberal hate from Hollywood. Shares out there saying we should kill the people in the Tea Party. Isn't that great? Have you heard about the new computer virus that actually takes your files hostage for money? We have a story out of Wichita on the Kansas Braille Transcription Institute and what happened to them. Wow, this is crazy stuff. In the second half of the program, we will have best-selling author Charlotte Hayes on to talk about her new book, When Did White Trash Become the New Normal? That's right. That and so much more on the little radio program that says you can like me, you can love me, you can kiss me, you can hug me, but don't tread on me. The Conscious of Kansas radio program